Hello everyone, welcome to the Grow Your Future podcast. It is good to be back. My name is Zah, I am your host, and I am joined by the Arabian accountant to the stars, Sam Eljerban.
Oh, thank you very much. What an introduction, mate. I'm always speechless, mate, every time.
But your clients are superstars, you are Arabian.
I am, so there's a few true things in that. I have one for you. I'm going to call you the Malay magician.
Wow,
because you create things out of nothing.
Yes.
You just create stuff. So that's my introduction to you.
Well, maybe you need to do the introduction next time.
Next time.
Right? So
magician.
Save that for next time.
Done. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, man.
Good to be back?
It is.
Yeah.
Talking away, discussing different things.
Yeah. Nothing's really changed for us, right? Like we've had so many hungry investors jump on board in the last, say, 3 or 4 months during lockdown. I think we're averaging like 2 or 3 deals a week, which is, and a lot of existing clients wanting more property to add to their portfolio. So it's been a very busy 3 to 4 months on the property front.
I think of all industries, that's probably the most booming, right?
Well, it's in the news every day.
So
even people who aren't in the market are talking about the market.
Yeah.
Like now that we're open up to, social events and, we can get to family gatherings, barbecues, all of that sort of thing. You can almost guarantee there's always going to be a conversation about property.
It's funny, isn't it? In Australia, everyone's talking about property at the barbecues, family events and things.
I mean, Australians love property in general, right? Even pre-COVID and pre-boom. They just have this love for property. But in the last, say, 12 months, they've loved it even more because the extreme growth that we've had, which, is it sustainable? This is the thing. Will we see an extra 30, 40% in capital growth over the next 12 months? I don't think so. I mean, I think people are going to run out of money soon, and they're not going to be able to borrow as much, and the government's putting pressure on, how much you can spend. But hey, all in all, the last couple of years have been pretty good for us in property.
Yeah, and the regulators might come in and start slowing things down.
The fucking regulators.
They're always running around trying to curb
ruin our lives. But we always get on top, right? It doesn't matter what gets thrown at us as investors. We pivot and we find alternative types of assets, alternative types of deals. We'll find alternative types of lenders, like all of those sort of things. And this is the thing, like they're trying to say, hey, let's now tax the rich because of the wealth gap and wealth inequality and all of that sort of thing. Let's introduce new codes that are going to, I guess, get more from the rich and will tax them more. But what will happen is that they'll use those codes in their favor and, they'll find another way, and that's how the rich make their money, right?
Yeah, actually a good story coming out of America regarding tax and property, which is a good combination for us. They were looking to tax unrealized gains. So in America, there was a proposal. I don't know.
So they haven't even made it yet?
Haven't made it. So it'd be like your capital growth that you've made, $1 million. They want to try and tap into that, which from the commentary I've seen in America, it's unconstitutional, but it's something they're trying to think about. So it's actually a good point you've raised there.
And they'll find a way to get around that if that became a new legislation, right? Because like the Malaysian magician does, right? He creates things from nothing, and you get dealt a deck of cards, right? And you
play them your best you can.
That's right. That's it. Play your best hand. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today, Sam?
So today we're talking about. Well, we're pretty much going to go through a post-COVID property update.
I think it's well overdue. We haven't been on this podcast for a while, so we've
since lockdown.
Yeah, so 4 months. A lot has happened, and we're now. I can't believe next month is Christmas already. So we're already at the end of the year. Isn't that crazy?
It's insane. Time is flying, mate. I think you work from home, you stay at home. You thought time might go slower. It hasn't really. Time's just gone crazy. It's gone so fast.
I think we went faster because we slept so much, and we ate so much bad food, and we didn't exercise, and it just flew by, right? And now we're back to normal, and we're all sort of rushing around, going, "Hey, it's the end of the year. What do we do?" Right? So what we thought it would be fitting to talk about a property update, and I guess what the short to medium term sort of looks like
Yep.
in the property market, and where the opportunity lies. So again, we're going to go through 10 interesting points, and we'll start with the first one.
First one, pretty much a general property update. I reckon, to look into the future, you have to look at the past first, just see what's happened, understand what's happened. So over the last 12 months, through media outlets and online, wherever you're looking, you would have seen property going up in a very, at a high rate. I found some research from CoreLogic, probably everyone's seen this, that's involved in property, but it'd be good to go through it as it has an annual growth for the last 12 months. Long story short, nationally, the average growth has been about 18% across all states as an average. Highest growth annually has been Hobart, as it says here, but everything is in the...
How much was Hobart?
Hobart was 24%. That was the annual change in dwelling values. Everything is between 10 and 20%, or 10% and higher. So massive growth. There are higher numbers. 20%.
So all markets have won.
All markets. The whole Australian property market has gone ballistic. Some states have gone better than others, but generally speaking, if you have owned a house in the last 12 months, you have made substantial money.
That's interesting that Hobart came out on top. I recently went to Hobart this year at the start of the year. I had to go for a funeral, unfortunately, but it was great because I haven't been to Hobart since I was a really small child. And when my parents migrated here from Malaysia, that was their first stop.
Hobart.
Yeah, because my mum studied in Tasmania.
Okay.
She had a scholarship to go to a university there. So my mum and dad, they came here. They got married there. My older brother, he was born there. So there was a lot of history in terms of my family back in Hobart, and it was really interesting to see that suburb from a real estate point of view. And there was some of the most beautiful houses in the nicest suburbs, and I just didn't think Hobart was like that. So now I guess because there's that whole, we can work from home, we don't really need to be attached to CBDs and all of that sort of thing, that market is going off because it's a beautiful location. It's quite slow because it's away from the hustle and bustle, and it just offers some really, really good lifestyle. Unfortunately, it's not as multicultural as, say, Melbourne or Sydney, so food and all of that sort of thing is not as vibrant. But in terms of a lifestyle in general, it's actually a beautiful town. So it just goes to show that now being able to work digitally and remotely, you can live anywhere. So this is where these markets are really sort of taking off.
And what's attractive in Hobart would have been the price point.
Well, it's definitely not the weather.
It's not the greatest. No. So you can save a lot of money by going down there.
Well, look, you will be in, let's say, a 10 out of 10, we call it affluent score of a location, something that's comparable to, say, a Bellevue Hill or Bondi in Hobart. I think it's Sandy Bay and all of those areas. Battery Point, they're all on the water. Like you're buying it at a fraction of what you would pay here, and you're getting to live amongst this demographic that's quite similar to here, right? So, people are migrating there, and there's no supply. So when there's no supply, everybody's buying the properties, prices go up.
We talked about it previously where, given the current environment and pretty much via those statistics, the whole market's going up, but that's not always going to happen. Obviously, the right recipes are in existence for that to happen, low interest rates and all that kind of stuff. But what do you see, say, over the last 12 months, what have you seen in the market and where money's going and all that kind of stuff?
Look, in the last 12 months, I think these markets like Southeast Queensland, for example, like there's just no land. Everybody's just snapping stuff up sight unseen. We've got a couple of examples here. For example, we did, well, you even bought in Everton Hills, which is about 10 k's from the Brisbane CBD. We had about 16, 17 clients in the same project. They were bought for circa, say, $550. Only a couple of months ago, one sold for $670,000. I think one even sold close to $700,000.
Wow.
Quite recently, it just hasn't been recorded yet. So there's over $100,000 worth of capital growth there in the last not even 12 months, right?
Yeah.
So some really, really big success there, and that actually doesn't look like it's slowing down. That's the Southeast Queensland market. I built something for about $1 million about a couple of years ago, but it completed probably about a year ago, and now that's worth about 1.4, 1.45.
Wow.
So there's been unbelievable growth in that market, and I actually don't see that slowing down anytime soon. Like a lot of people say, oh, it's because of the Brisbane Olympics and all of that sort of thing. I guess that's one contributing factor, but everybody wants to live there. It's got great weather, it's got all the infrastructure you need from I guess the CBD. It's the people are really friendly. Like you've got some great bars and restaurants popping up. Like if you go there, because people have more money to spend on discretionary items because they're not spending it all on housing. If you go out to the restaurants and the bars, they're full, right? But if you go out to restaurants and bars around here, sometimes you'll find places that are literally, they're empty because people don't have the money to spend after spending on rent or after spending on their mortgage. Coles is packed because everyone's cooking food at home because that's all they can afford. But generally speaking, I find that people have a bit more of a better time up in Southeast Queensland because they got a little bit more money to spend.
The lifestyle is a lot more attractive.
Yeah.
So it comes down to an affordability thing, both from an investment point of view and if they're going to buy their home, it's cheaper to go there.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think the news of the Olympics going there is going to help. I don't think it's done anything yet, but I think with the infrastructure that's going to go into place, there's more growth there. I don't think it's going to stop soon. It might slow, but that infrastructure spend over time is going to be billions of dollars. It's going to really help that market continue. It's
not the Olympics specifically, right? It's the infrastructure that supports the Olympics, of the the international migration, the tourism, all of that.
The jobs are going to be created. All the tradies are going to go there. People are going to live there. They're going to build up new roads, new freaking areas, new towns and stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of activity.
People don't even care about the Olympics. Who watches it anyway, right? When the Olympics happens, people just go, oh yeah, the Olympics are on.
And why they cheer so much is...
They've spent so many billions of dollars on infrastructure and no one really gives a fuck about the Olympics, right? But who fares out of it? It's the property market gets a really big boost because people move there, right? So I think, the next decade is you're going to see like a very, very big boom in Southeast Queensland.
So that's more or less the update in property. Long story short, markets are going crazy everywhere across the board. Time will tell what happens with the markets once, I guess, all the cheap money is gone slowly through the decade. I
think also a good point, Sam, is to identify the value proposition. So, for example, Southeast Queensland right now is actually quite cheap in comparison to, say, Sydney and Melbourne. So, that's another reason why a lot of people are migrating there is purely for that affordability price point, right? So I think while that affordability and value is still there, it'll see a really, really good run.
And there's still a lot to go there when you compare it to Sydney and Melbourne. So
a lot of room to move.
If anyone thinks it's slowing down, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to...
Yeah. Not in that market anyway.
Not at all. All right, number 2, potential rate rises moving forward.
All right, this is a hot topic at the moment because everybody is super scared of interest rates going up, right? Everybody is saying, oh, but what if rates go up? You know what I mean? Like, and they're so scared to invest their money. It's like, well, we've spoken about this before, and then when rates go up, it usually means that you've made money. Now, who it's really going to affect when rates go up are people that have stretched themselves so far and they've gone and bought homes.
Correct.
Right? Yes. And the reason being is when they've bought homes, there's no rental income coming in to support that rate rise. So usually if it does increase in terms of interest rates, what will happen is if you have investment properties, because the cost of money is now more expensive, your rents then tend to rise.
Indeed, yeah, that's it. That's basic economics of it. So if rates do go up, it's a sign that the economy is improving, the market's improving, everything's going well. They're trying to curb growth. That means something's happened to your property. It's gone up in value. If it's gone up in value, generally speaking, it's harder to afford for other people, and they'll stick to rents, and rents can go up higher too as there's more demand.
It's all
rents.
relative, isn't it?
It's a sort of cycle. It sort of feeds itself going forward. And that was a good point about the rate rises mainly affecting homeowners. I'd agree. They're usually the ones under mortgage stress. They have a big loan, they've gone all out on their big property, they love the property, they bought in a mad location. Maybe their incomes aren't going up as fast as they would expect. You know, they have set budgets, they've got family, they've got kids, a lot of expenses. They're the ones that are going to hurt if rates go up. So if you're investing, you should be able to weather the storm. And again, note that interest is deductible. So if it does put you in a negative situation, the government, Scott Morrison, is a nice bloke. He's going to subsidise that loss for you. So it's not going to cost you the full amount. So another thing to think about for investors.
So Sam, I wanted to touch on what you just spoke about. You just said something about mortgage stress, right?
Yeah.
So that's really, really important, because right now no one's under mortgage stress because money is so cheap. But as soon as they say, okay, well, the banks are starting to now move their interest rates up, they're starting to now assess you on a higher interest rate, people start sort of freaking out, right? Now, this is why it's so important to buy in markets that are highly affluent. The demographic can endure, I guess, rental increases, interest rate rises, and it's not going to put them in dire straits where they're going to have to put their property on the market and then potentially lose money, right? Now, if they've bought, in a market where there's, the weekly family incomes are quite low compared to the state average, then those people are probably going to be put under stress if there was an interest rate rise. Now, if you're in those markets and you've bought in those markets, you would be very nervous, because if an abundance of stock then comes onto the market because of distress, right, then that stock is highly likely to be discounted, which will pull down the value of your investment, right? So this is where, okay, the last 12, 24 months, we've seen every market go through the roof. Even the ones in less desirable locations have seen 20, 30% growth, right? But what happens when that mortgage stress comes? Who does it actually stress out? Right? Does it stress out the rich, wealthy people? Probably not. Where they have big chunks of equity in their home, and they're in traditional, old school, prestige suburbs, probably not going to affect those people because they've got quite a bit of equity buffers to keep them in play, right? So it's really important to analyze markets that are, I guess, have a wealthy demographic that can endure those financial storms, because rate increases doesn't really matter there.
Yeah, so I guess there's already talk of the rates rising, which pretty much is inevitable at some stage. That's just how cycles work. Rates go up and down. So there's ways to combat that, and there's ways to manage it, and it's not the end of the world. For the investor, it's probably going to be a lot more easy to absorb. I just wanted to raise one thing, just to show a bit of, say, diverse opinion, or just a bit of uncertainty about what's actually happening and who knows what's going to happen moving forward. APRA told the banks back in, I think it was April, to get ready for negative interest rates. So even back only a few months ago, APRA came in to tell banks to get ready for negative interest rates, which hasn't been seen in Australia, but I just thought it was interesting, where everyone's already thinking of a rate rise, but APRA's telling banks to get ready for, not get ready, but be prepared. So I think at the macro level, even though there are experts in every field, they don't tend to all agree, and it's a bit uncertain as to what's going to happen. It could stay low rates for a very, very long time. Rates might not go up, so who knows?
My prediction is this: they will raise interest rates, but not a lot, because they can't otherwise.
Subtle, it'll be subtle.
Yeah, it'll be subtle. Yeah. But what will happen is people will stop spending money. And then once people stop spending money, we all know what the government is like. Knee-jerk reaction. They'll plummet interest rates down, probably to negative. Well, even at 2%, it is
It's
negative when you think about it.
Yep.
If inflation moves at, it was, I think last quarter, 6% or something like that,
Yeah.
and then you've got an interest rate of 2%, you're really negative like 4%, right?
Yep.
So I think it's going to go back down again
Yep.
After they increase the rates, because people will stop spending money. And look, the economy is weak. Like, people need to spend money. So yes, in the short term, I think the interest rate rise, whether they go from 2.5 to 3% or whatever it is, it will curb the housing market. But then what will happen, as you curb the housing market, people stop spending money. So what they'll do is they'll drop the interest rate again, right, to stimulate it again. Like you've always said, they've got these knobs that they can just tweak, right?
Levers, yeah.
And they just adjust it to whatever conditions are happening on the day. They don't have a crystal ball.
No. It's all I think reactive. There's not a lot of proactivity going on. But anyway, let's go to the next one.
Yes.
Internal migration back to the cities.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of people move to rural and regional areas, which are obviously pushing up a lot of the property prices there. And I think it will continue to do so because we can work from home and all of that sort of thing. People don't need to go into the office anymore, or they might just need to go in one day a week. So, if you live an hour and a half away and you're only going to the office once a week, it's sort of not really a commute anymore. It's like a little day trip, right? It's an excursion. So I think people are sort of taking that opportunity now to not have to live in the cities, which is great, I think, for the city, because it's sort of, like, it's not as dense, there's the...
Gives it a break.
Give it a break, give it a bit of a breather.
Yeah.
But my belief is people will always head back into the cities. You know, like people from overseas, they'll come, and the first stop is the city, and it's where all the action is. It's the financial hub of the country. People are attracted to our beautiful cities in this country. And it's not saying that the regional towns are not attractive, because they're very attractive. But in terms of economics, they've always come back to the city, and we're actually seeing it now. So a lot of sea changes and tree changes are starting to now head back.
How do you see that? Do you see that in some sort of data or research, or how are you seeing
Look, I keep up to date through real estate agents, right? Because real estate agents are telling me who their clients are. So a lot of people from Sydney have invested in second homes, including myself, right? On, the Central Coast or Newcastle, or even, up in Brisbane. People are now having these second homes to go to, but they still feel like they need that city hub to come back to, because they need to. This is where their life is essentially, right? A lot of people are moving away permanently. Do I think that will last? Probably not, because I feel that the majority of the population, generally speaking, are in our cities. So in order for you to build relationships, meet new people, you've got a greater chance at success in our cities. So there was a famous, I can't remember, CEO of some corporation came out in Bloomberg the other day and said, this whole work from home thing is actually very bad for young people that are trying to progress in their career. For people like you and I, it doesn't really matter. We've built the relationships. Everybody knows who we are. We've got the personal brand. People want to do business with us. But if you're 21, 22 years old, fresh out of uni, and you're needing to network and meet people, what are you going to do at home? Right? No one's going to hold you in high regard when you over a Zoom call, right? You need to be out there mingling with other, I guess, like-minded people that are going to help push you up your career or help you launch your business. So migration back to the city is going to happen, whether you like it or not, right?
There's more potential for a brighter future. There's more opportunity, and there's a reason that country folk would go to the city. There was a reason they were leaving the country to go to the city, because there's more opportunity.
Well, it's what we did.
There's more money. Yeah,
it's what we did.
So I think I think it was a nice idea. And I read an ABC article, and they interviewed a young bloke that moved his family out. I can't remember what town. But he said he's enjoying it, but he doesn't know how long it would last. The infrastructure's not there. And he said, surprisingly, it's a bit more expensive a lifestyle because there's less, say, services available. The service providers can charge more.
Yeah.
So they might get a cheaper house or something like that, but the infrastructure's not there, the opportunities aren't there, and it seems like some costs are quite high. So it might sound good, but once they've done it, they might not
get over it.
Yeah, they might get over it.
Yeah, your mate Peter Switzer, he says he says that it's like a sugar hit, right?
Uh-huh.
They go, oh, I don't have to be in the city anymore, and they move away, and 2 hours away, they move to the Hunter Valley, and they go, they love it, right? It's green, and then it becomes boring, right?
You miss the city.
Yeah, and then they miss the city, and I that would definitely happen to me, right? My business is here, my clients are here, my network is here. I get a real buzz from being here. I love it here, but I also love regional towns, right? And I love going there for the weekends. Hence the reason why we now have a second home. But the majority of the time, I have to be here now. I'm one person, right? There are other entrepreneurs, there are other business people. If I could give advice to young people, stay in the cities, because that's where the opportunity is.
If you had a tree change, where would you go?
Tree change.
Or sea change. If you didn't live here,
I wouldn't go to Byron Bay. Everyone's at Byron, right?
Okay.
Like everyone's at
like
Byron
Sydney.
now.
It's like a suburb. It's a suburb of Sydney.
It's Bondi. I went to Byron for New Year's, and it was like I wasn't even on holidays. It was like I was in Bondi.
Byron icebergs.
To be honest with you, I would rather be super agile and go everywhere, especially after lockdown.
Okay.
It's really taught me I can't be in the one place. Like I'm really itching to move around again. Hence the reason why I rent.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Like I rent so I can be agile, so I can move, I can go to different places. So for me, it's about going to many different places. Now, we do business all over Australia. So for us, like we're very lucky.
Yeah.
So we've got a purpose to go around. But hey, Southeast Queensland, beautiful spot. My sister lives there. I'd love to set up a sort of a home up there. That would be nice.
Yeah, weather's amazing.
Yeah.
Family's there. I've got a sister there too. I'll probably end up there. Maybe in our retirement days.
Yeah. Not long, Sam. Not long.
Very soon, mate.
All right, let's keep moving.
Number 4. Okay, another update with the property market. Land shortage and an apparent 21-year low building approval rate.
I'll tell you a funny story. I went to the gym this morning, right? And I've got a client that's a personal trainer up there. Yeah. And, I bumped into him and we're trying to get him a block of land so we can build, an investment property for him. And I bump into him every day and he's like, any blocks come up yet? Any blocks come up yet? And I'm like, mate, do you understand how hard it is to find a block of land that's registered right now? It's near impossible, Sam. Like if our next estate, right, that we're working on, and our estates they're very sort of exclusive and in limited supply as there is, but the next one we're working on is registering in mid 2022.
Wow.
So we don't
7 months away.
Yeah, it's a long time.
And how long usually would you have to wait? You wouldn't have to wait at all?
Usually we could just go, okay, there's registered dirt now, we can build your house.
What do you want? That one?
Yeah. There was choice. But now in the last, say, 12 to 24 months, it's been gobbled up by hungry homeowners taking advantage of the home builder grant, low interest rates. Obviously it's been a perfect storm for, people doing renovations and all of that sort of thing. So all property has been, taken up, but land specifically is very, very hard to come by. And we all know they're not making more land. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a very low supply of the land at the moment. So
low supply of land.
It's going to cause...
Which is causing prices to go up, right? But there's also a decline in building approvals, right?
So it's like a double whammy happening.
So even with apartments and townhouses, you can't get them. Like we are having to get our clients into apartments and townhouses that are going to be complete in 2023.
2 years away.
Right?
Yeah.
They haven't even turned dirt yet because everything has been taken. Even the off the plan stuff that's due to complete next year, forget about it. You won't get in. It's all gone.
So a combination of the low interest rate, Queensland being an affordable area, all of these things are happening, and the market can't even. It's sort of like the market can't even keep up.
Sam, it's not even Queensland.
Yeah,
it's just here as well.
Just everywhere.
It's here as well.
Alrighty, number 5. Okay, another thing identified is the blue chip assets are becoming more unaffordable due to demand for returns.
So blue chip assets are assets in really good markets.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's talk about inner and middle ring markets, which means probably about 10 to 15 Ks from a CBD. We know in Sydney right now, 10 to 15 Ks from the CBD, like you're paying through the roof. Even apartments, everything are so expensive, right? Melbourne, it's sort of about 7-8 years behind Sydney, and I think what's happened in the last 2 or 3 years have been tough for Melbourne, especially this year. However, it's allowed Melbourne to have a bit of a breather. What we can do is we've still got opportunity to buy in Melbourne. I would say in the apartment space.
Yep.
And a lot of people say, oh, what about COVID and all of that sort of thing? But you're investing for 20, 30 years, right? So once we get back on track with Melbourne, what will happen? It'll be probably just as strong as Sydney, right?
So it sounds like the blue chip areas can change. That's sort of where the money's going and what opportunities are arising. Blue chip areas can change.
They can change, but they can also become non-existent to property investors. Right? Now, a lot of people don't understand what that means. It means that as property investors, we need to achieve a yield, because the yield will then translate to capital growth in the future. Now, we all know yields are non-existent in Sydney, right? So, if yields are non-existent in Sydney, then that means it's non-existent to property investors.
Yeah, I see.
Right?
Okay, yep.
So, we have now got the ability to still get really good yields in apartments in Melbourne, and say townhouses and homes in Brisbane. I'm talking about inner ring, middle ring, blue chip areas. What will happen with Melbourne, for those apartments, those yields will drop because the capital growth will go through the roof, and then we won't be able to invest there anymore. Like, you will be able to invest there, but it won't be a hub for property investors anymore.
It won't be a blue chip investment area.
Exactly.
So the investment areas of blue chip assets can change and move
Exactly.
around. Until the extent they get they're no longer an asset or a blue chip asset area.
So you want to get in there early, right? While the yields are still there, so you can still hold the asset. This is the reason why we're steering people away from Sydney, because the yields are low. It'll be very difficult to hold the asset. So as an investor, it probably doesn't work. But as a homeowner, then, go for gold. It's a bit different.
Speaking of yields, talking of yields, commercial property.
Oh, yes.
What's been happening in
Okay,
that
so
space? Tell me.
I've bagged commercial property on previous podcasts, and I must apologise to my commercial property counterparts. I've actually gotten into commercial property lately, and I love it. The reason being is because, like you said, Sam, yields are strong, right? Yields are strong, and yields are starting to drop in a lot of really good markets we were in terms of residential, and it's a great alternative asset to look at. I love it because APRA, the governing body who controls all of the lending rules and all of that sort of thing, doesn't govern lending for commercial. Yes, it's more expensive to get into, but hey, the returns can be a lot higher. For
the listener, what does that mean when APRA is not involved? What does that mean to an investor?
So as an investor, when you're going to get a loan for a residential loan, it's sort of governed by APRA. And APRA can come in and change the rules and make banks use higher interest rate buffers and all of that.
Affect your ability to borrow.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, you instead of borrowing $1 million, you can only borrow $500,000. So it really does affect what you can do as an investor. But with commercial, it's more assessed on the deal rather than the individual. So it's more so looking at it as a business than the individual itself. Like, they do look at the individual, but not as hard as residential. And I guess that's why a lot of people move from residential to commercial, because it's, I guess, more of a business play.
Yeah, and like you said, the yields are there. Can you give us an example of the yields in commercial compared to, say, residential?
Sure. So I just bought something at 7.12% yield in a blue chip market. And it was a it was a large purchase. So, you know, getting that yield in let's call it 7%. Let's say you borrow at a little bit of a higher interest rate than residential at 3%, then
4%.
4% is your profit. Now, the beauty of commercial real estate is that the tenants pay all of your outgoings. Wow. So it's definitely an asset class that I would suggest everybody consider after they've built their 10-year acquisition strategy, because that way, you know, you've got that foundation built up, and you can use the equity from that portfolio that you've built, because capital growth is still quite strong in residential, and then you can tip that into commercial later on down the track.
And I keep feeding the portfolio. Good stuff. Just one tip from my end as an accountant and from a tax perspective. A lot of people might not know, but your super fund can actually invest in a commercial property to then rent to your business. So if you're in business, you're able to be the landlord and the tenant of that property, and enjoy the capital growth it can provide for your super fund. At the same time, you're paying yourself the rent.
Which is different from buying a residential property in your SMSF where you can't live in it.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
But if it was a commercial property, you can, I guess you wouldn't reside there, you would just do business from there.
Do business there. But if you had a little studio at the back and you slept there, it's no big deal. But residential, you can't do that with SMSF. So just a little point there, if you want to get into commercial and you have a business, you can effectively buy a commercial property, rent it to your own business, which is a pretty good play.
It's a very good play, very tax effective.
Number seven. Property prices, an update. Okay, so
I think we've already covered.
We sort of have.
Prices.
I think just the point we're going to get to with that, the main point of that one is it's still quite cheap. Property is still quite cheap if you don't compare it or have a comparative with money.
So the measuring stick here is money, right? So everybody goes, oh, property is so expensive. But really, if you're measuring it in money, because money has devalued so much in the last, say, 10 years or the last 100 years, what happens, it appears that everything is more expensive. But if you compare it to, say, ounces of gold, a guy in the States by the name of Jason Hartman does this really, really well. Yeah. He calls it, what do you compare it to? Or something like that. And he does it in rice, and he'll do it in beans, he'll do it in orange juice, he'll do it in everything. And it's actually quite expensive when you're looking at it in terms of dollars. Yeah. But when you're looking at it in I guess, rice, orange juice, gold, and all of that sort of thing, it's actually still quite cheap.
Yeah. If you had money in crypto and it's gone up 30%, property's gone up 30%, really, it's not more expensive. But if you had the cash, it would be more expensive. So that's another point to people out there.
Compare it to other things. Compare it to petrol.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, petrol now is like over $2 a litre. Compare it to that.
Yeah.
You know, how many litres of petrol does it take to buy this home? Then all of a sudden, and how many litres of petrol did it take to buy this home in 1975?
Yeah.
Like you'll see the comparisons and you'll be blown away, right? And you'll understand that it's still quite affordable.
It is. Okay, number eight. A trend is occurring. We've seen it a lot dealing with our clients. It's capitalizing on newfound equity. So it's a matter of, we already own a house, the family owns a house, we have some equity in that property, we're going to tap into that to maybe expand the portfolio. When you're dealing with clients, what kind of percentage, just a rough one, come in with that kind of situation available to them? Is it quite common?
It's quite common now because a lot of our clients have bought over the last 3 or 4 years, and now they've made that capital growth, and they're trying to decide, okay, what do we do? And I think what people need to do is go get their properties valued now, because we've all made a lot of growth in the last, say, 12, 24 months. Get it valued, lock in that equity. You know, even if you don't want to use it, just have it locked in so that you can tap into it if a good deal comes along, because when the market sort of maybe corrects, that's not when you want to get your properties valued. You sort of want to lock it in now while it's quite high, and then use it for whatever you want to invest in later on.
Yeah, I think just another tail end point to that is this kind of stuff, even though we're on that path, it does contribute to the wealth gap. Because if you can imagine, I bought a property 5 years ago, I've got equity, I can now go and buy something that someone else can't as their first property. So it's more or less telling us to get in as soon as you can, or as effectively as you can, and get into the market.
Get moving.
Get moving.
Get moving. Number 9, don't buy your home, be investment ready. So, we always, talk about not buying a home, rent vest and all of that sort of thing. I think it's probably more important than ever right now, probably not to buy a home. Yeah. I think you're sort of overpaying. It's going to be expensive. A good friend of mine who's a very successful property investor said to me, the only reason you'd buy a home now is if you knew it was going to triple in value in the next 3 to 5 years. But we all know that's not going to happen in Sydney, purely from an affordability point of view. So I would suggest, if you've got money, if you've got equity, don't buy the home, because you're probably going to buy at near top of the market. Buy income producing property.
Yeah, it's the smartest thing to do in this day and age. It's a matter of fact, property's too high. It's unaffordable to buy, and if you do purchase something, you're living it, you're going to have some issues with cash flow potentially. Just to give you a rough idea, if you're to buy a property worth, say, 1.2 million, you put 200 grand down, which could be a lot of your money, you don't have much else. $1 million loan at P&I, principal and interest, at 2.4%, it's going to cost you about 47 grand a year. So nearly $1,000 a week. Now on average incomes, that's quite tolling, and that's an average price. So really, if you're to buy a property with average incomes in an average area in Sydney, you're going to be under the pump.
And what if interest rates go up?
That's right. And if interest rates go up, just say they go up 1% over a couple of years' time, at that level, instead of, say, 50 grand, it'll be about a 56, 57 grand. So if your wages aren't going up, if you're in a job that doesn't have a potential for more income, you'll be squeezing on other areas of your life. Your life's not going to be fun. So yeah, buying the home, especially in a heated market like Sydney, it seems to be a sort of no-go.
And look, it sounds like we just rag on buying a home, but we practice what we preach. We don't buy homes to live in, we rent, and we buy income-producing assets. Like, we buy multiple per year, and it doesn't matter what financial storm gets in our way. The cash flow sort of looks after all the expenses, so we're safeguarded. The last one is future opportunities in the current market. Now, I feel that the opportunity lies in apartments. And a lot of people will disagree with me, because they'll say, oh, but what about COVID and the whole apartment blocks get locked down, no one wants to be in them. It's like, well, yes, but historically, through history, what happens, the house prices go through the roof and the apartments generally follow. Okay. What's happened now is houses have gone through the roof and apartments are still down here, because everybody's not wanting to be there. But history tells us that the gap always closes. It always closes. The houses go first and then the apartments go. But right now the apartments are down here. So the value proposition is to buy here, right? When no one else is buying. And that's what I love about investing, because a true investor knows they have to be greedy when people are fearful.
I was going to say that. I was going to sign off with that. You beat me to it. Buffett. That's Warren Buffett, man.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best.
So but smart money's going there.
A lot of people are fearful right now. And I think this is the thing. Like, houses, yes, they're great if you're buying the right locations and the cash flow supports it, right? But don't just go and buy any house because you think it's going to go up in value. They've already had its run, right? I'm not saying they're never going to go up in value again. They will, but the short burst has happened, right? Where the value proposition is in the apartments, because they're still quite cheap and affordable.
And if you need one, contact us.
Well, we'll help you out. We'll help you out. So that's 10 updates from, I guess the last 4 to 5 months. Well, we covered, maybe 1 or 2 years, but and I know that was a long one. Maybe listen to this one on fast forward. That'll save you some time.
1.5.
Yeah. But Sam, thank you. It's
Alright.
good to be back. Indeed. And looking forward to doing another one with you soon. Guys, thanks for listening. We'll catch up with you soon. See ya.
See you.